In this lesson, I'm going to give an in-depth chord analysis of one of Billy Joel's most complex and intriguing songs, the title track off his incredible 1977 album, The Stranger, the year I was born. In my opinion, it's Billy's best album and an absolute masterclass in pop songwriting. By popular demand, I have a new format to my video lessons here where I get right to the point of my lesson, which is the signature style of chord analysis that I do, rather than give a lengthy overview, which tends to be kind of drawn out and bore some of you. I'll either pepper that information into the lesson or put stuff at the end of the lesson if I feel it's more in that deep dive overview category. Let me very quickly say, if you want to support my efforts here, please join my Patreon. It's the very best way to support me, and it's night and day compared to any of the other platforms that I'm using. It's called High Castle Conservatory. Please consider going over there and joining me and continue this fun music education geeky stuff. Very quickly, please subscribe below, hit the notification bell to make sure you're informed when I release a new video. Check out my playlist page to find the music lessons and content that most interests you. About to get into it here, but about my style of chord charts. Take a look at this here. Whenever I have something in a sunshine, that means a new key. Right here we see the chords themselves. These little rectangular boxes are the names of sections, and I always try to start my sections, at the beginning of a new system. Or even if there's an odd number of bars that lead into it, that's what I'll write it as. Then you see these Roman numerals, which is pretty standard, which tells us which place in the key that we're in does this chord occupy. So in this case, if I'm saying we're in the key of G with this sunshine, then we see E minor is the 6 of G. Every time you see those sunshines, it indicates a new key for the bar below it, not above it. So there's some place where it gets kind of crowded. Anyway, that's all pretty self-explanatory. Let's get into this here. You can follow along on your keyboard, preferably. You're going to learn the most because you'll see me playing the keyboard down there, and you'll see the exact voicings that we're doing. If you don't play at all and don't have one and don't want to learn like that, you could follow the chord chart in your guitar, but you'll see the keyboard at the bottom left. Bottom right, you'll get bullet points about what we're working on, and in the upper left, you're going to have a pointer pointing at what chord we're on in the song. And, up in the upper right, you got this handsome dude talking to you. Please, if you don't know this song well, listen to it a few times, the original Billy Joel version. It is a really good song, and I think being familiar with it's going to help you absorb this lesson that I'm about to give you. I think this is one of Billy's most mysterious songs. Most of his lyrics are relatively cut and dry. He's not one of the deeper lyric writers in pop music, but once in a while he has a song that really can make you think. Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is my very favorite song of his, and that's wild. But this one is kind of a weird, abstract subject matter about your, I'm not going to get into it right here, but could it be the shady side of all of us, or our, subconscious, or the masks that we wear and display in front of other people, but if they see us with that mask off, they see who we really are. And it's a very cool song, The Stranger. The song form has an intro, then it's got a body, and then it's got an outro, which is similar to the intro. That's kind of an ABA form if you think about it, except in this case, B consists of vamps, verses, and choruses. So it has that form, though, of a intro that's pretty different than the song, which is more funky, and then another cinematic outro, which is the same as that cinematic intro. There's even some crossfades, which is an interesting idea, which can work sometimes in a song where it has to be recorded in different sections and fade into each other, and they do that at the end here. There's a mysterious element to the song, like a stranger whistling down a mysterious espionage alleyway in a dank corner of Europe. There's definitely a Steely Dan type of influence, too. There's some chords that Billy does, which we'd never really heard him incorporate before this album. It just seems to be that he has a little bit of a Steely Dan vibe going on with elevating those chord structures compared to some of his simpler songs. Billy has another song called Zanzibar, if you want to listen to it, which really sounds like a Steely Dan song, much more than this song. But the influence is in there in this song, The Stranger, and I'll point it out when I see it. Let me start by just playing the chords of the intro. The intro is this cinematic, it starts with a piano melody. But I just want you to listen to the chords in just intro A one time, which is the first half of the intro. It's this very mysterious minor key type of vibe. it goes to intro B and the whistle comes in. Truth be told, I'm a terrible whistler. I'm jealous of those spaghetti western guys who have those $1 million whistles. I am just not a very good whistler. I wish I could pull it off for you. Sounds like a guy who's just learning to whistle. Anyway, so what we can hear is this song is actually in E minor. Why am I calling it in G then? Honestly, the Roman numerals are much easier to assign in the major key oftentimes. G is the relative major of E minor. I don't want to hear any arguments from people in the comments. I know this song is in E minor. I just decided to do the Roman numerals inside the relative major key because I thought it made it a little easier, but we will be discussing what role it has in the minor key as we go. So most of this song is in G, and the chorus modulates to D and then back to G, but really almost all the time it's from an E minor perspective, not G major. This song has some really unique alternate bass notes and chord choices and extensions that help stretch the key out and make us seem like we're almost in another key. So for this intro, I have it divided into two sections, intro A and intro B, and it's a slow cinematic vibe. That's even an octave up from there in the song. But I'm not going to play it like that. I'm here to show you the chords. I'm not here to perform it. I could have practiced it more, but whatever. I'm here to show you the songwriting ideas that are going on under this. So we're in E minor, and let me just say I have a little, not a rant, but on minor. Minor chord progressions can get pretty boring. 1, 4, 5, or, the Andalusian cadence. Let me just say that there isn't as many people doing very creative chord progressions in minor as there is in major, perhaps. Or at least I don't notice it as much. Brian Wilson, for example, is a major key genius and doesn't play quite as much in the minor keys. Whereas someone like Kurt Weill, who I have a few videos on, is an absolute genius in minor key and can turn the most basic chord progression into something like... We basically just reharmonize the simple minor key. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that this intro has all the hallmarks of one of these kind of generic climb down minor kind of... There's nothing wrong with that. We've all heard those kind of chord progressions, but Billy really ramps it up a notch here and elevates it and adds an element of sophistication. So I'm going to hum the piano melody and play the chords for you of what we call intro A. And we start on E minor, which is really the key that we're in. We're in E minor. Sorry I called it G major, but the Roman numerals get kind of squirrely in those minor keys and are not as clear as they are in major keys. So we understand that we're in E minor, which is related to G major because it's what they call the relative major. Every minor has a relative major and every major has a relative minor. E and G are the two related ones in this case. Right away, instead of going just making it that sort of generic walk down, there's a G major 7 chord, which is, listen to the best way I could voice it was, and the reason is because that G is in the melody, so it's a major 7, but it's going to have major 7 and 1. So it's basically walking down in E minor from E, D, C. Remember, we're examining this from a G major perspective, so in G major that's 6, then 1, doesn't sound like 1, 4. So in a way, it's like kind of like the Andalusian cadence, right? But this is just spicing it up a little bit. Then B7, which is 5 of E minor, right? Or it's 3 dominant in the key of G. Instead of resolve, it goes up to the 4. Now that 4, C major 7, would be 6 or flat 6 in the key of E minor. But remember I told you we're examining it from a perspective of G. So that's 4 in G. Once again, from the top, we have 6. 1, 2, 4, 2. Now that 3 dominant, which is the 5 of that E minor. Don't resolve. It makes it feel like you resolve to E minor right there, but it just stays on that C major and suspends, and then it does something cool. It lifts that minor to major, which, if you know minor chords, that's always one of the devices, is that you eventually turn that minor chord major and dominant and go up a fourth to a minor key. So that's exactly what's happening here, is we've been in E minor, and then on the second line, it's suddenly major and does this climb up that goes E major, D over F sharp, E7 flat 9 over G sharp, which if you know my style of writing is just a diminished chord, but I wanted to show that it's functioning as an E7 that leads up a fourth toward A minor. Now what is A minor? It's really just 2 of G, or in that E minor key it would be 4, right? If you're in the key of E minor, the 4 is A minor. So all this is really doing is climbing up a fourth, which isn't that fancy, but I think that lead up, that E major, D over F sharp, E7 flat 9 is kind of elegant. So there we have it, from the beginning. B7 is 5 of E minor, or it's 3 of G major. Now turn it major, climb up to 4th. A minor, 2, it's 2, 6, 5, It's a nice chord progression. So from that E major, it makes the minor major and climbs up to A minor. A minor. Now check out this E minor over G. I want you to understand that an E minor over G is very close to a G6 chord. I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily have this note, but the sound is very similar. If you called that G6, it wouldn't be a big deal. In this case, I really felt like the voicing went like that instead of... So just so you know, E minor over G and G6 are basically the same chord, lacking one note. So we climb up to that A minor, and let's remember, we're not really in a new key. A minor is just 2 of G, right? And it's 4 of E minor. So that's 2, 6 is E minor, 5 is D major over F sharp, 4 is C add 2 over E, that's the Steely Dan Mu chord. B minor is a 3, a natural 3, and then the 3 dominant, the B7, because that's 5 of E minor, right? In the key of E minor, B7 is 5. So it goes to the natural minor, which is B minor. And let's remember that B minor over D is very similar to a D6 chord. It just doesn't have an A. But in this case, like I said, I thought it was simpler in that way. So already we've elevated the structure of a generic minor key progression. It goes to what's called intro B, and all it really changes is a whistle came in. And if you read about this album, Billy was just whistling to set a placeholder for the melody. Something's going to play this, some instrument, who knows, maybe a sax or a clarinet or something. But eventually, I don't know, the engineer turned it up, maybe they added some reverb to the whistle, and then realized this whistle sounds like The Stranger. It really has a haunting effect. So remember that in your recording. Sometimes it's the happenstance or the happy accidents that really, is the subconscious way of it having an effect on your music, where you just put something down. Sometimes we call that demo-itis in a way, where you hear something, you're like, I can't get that out of my head. I thought it was just a demo, but sometimes it really works. And in the case of this whistle, where it changes from the piano playing the melody to the told you I'm a horrible whistler. Make some comments below. It's really, really bad. It's embarrassing. So it adds this really mysterious element, and it does a very similar chord progression, and it's almost the same. This time it adds a minor 7, I can hear in this voicing, so it changes there, and it doesn't do this beautiful, close G major 7. It seems to just do G over D there, but was he improvising or thinking that it's a different chord? I don't know. It's kind of weird calling it a different chord when it's almost the same chord, but I have to go with what I hear on the transcription. And this is the same. This is the same as the first part. Now it adds more color. It turns it dominant. Here too. So yeah, the intro B, the second half of the intro really changes it up a little as it goes on. From that E7, it goes... That is pretty wild for E minor. Remember I was telling you about elevating a minor key progression? Those major thirds in the bass right there. Let's break this down here. So remember, I'm still saying we're in G major. Yes, I know we're in E minor, but you have to understand how it relates to the major key. And Roman numeral wise, it's best if we do it with the major as the primary, but we do want to understand its role in minor as well. So from intro B, where that whistle comes in, it's basically the same as the intro A, except that second chord, I just don't hear him hitting the major 7 on that, but I think he was thinking it's the same basic thing, because why would you change just one chord? Who knows? The whistle. Then the band kicks in there. So it's really, the intro is pretty separate from the main part of the song. So that's the end of the intro there. Piano taking the melody the first half on intro A, and intro B we have the mysterious whistle, maybe the character of the stranger himself. Go ahead and look at those chords, understand them from a G major perspective, understand them from an E minor perspective. I mean, let's go to intro A. From a strictly E minor perspective, I'm going to do this on the fly here. We have E minor's 1, G major's 3 of E minor, C major's 6 of E minor, B7's 5 of E minor, C major's 6 of E minor. Then we turn that minor major and climb up a 4th with little lead-up chords. Now we're on that A minor, which is 4 of E minor. E minor's 1, D is 7 of E minor, C is, gosh, that's hard, C is 6 of E minor, B minor is 5 minor of E minor, then B7 is 5 itself of E minor. So yes, I know this is minor. have other videos that go into that Andalusian cadence, check out I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, my analysis of the Beach Boys song, which dives more heavily into that. So I think that's all we really need to go over in this intro. There's 2 parts. It's slow. It's very cinematic. It really could be a movie theme. This is one of my favorite Billy Joel songs. It really, whatever you think of Billy Joel, I'm telling you, this song is absolutely fantastic. So it goes into more of a funky groove after that. I'm calling it Vamp. And it's 2 chords, E minor 7 to C9. And there is some little guitar doing a melody. It's something like this. Something like that. And the piano doesn't play that. It's really hard to hear what the piano is actually doing in the song, so you have to imagine someone like Billy, who's a pretty good rock pianist, is not always doing exactly what you're supposed to do. So if it says E minor 7, maybe he's doing something like that. It's not a very piano-forward song, but it's Billy Joel and you know it's there. So we'll just go through the basics of what the piano might be doing, but you hear more guitars and drums and bass, and it's kind of a real raucous, funky kind of track. You know, Billy also could be doing something, you know, that plays off the E minor. Maybe it goes to D major real quick, kind of a funky little thing. I'm not going to write the chords in, but... So I don't know that that's what it's doing. Like I said, you can't really hear the piano very clearly in this song at all, except in the intro and outro. But during the funky part, we're just guessing. So we're just going to keep it basic here. I just wanted to let you know there's probably a degree of improvising that, you know, someone as good at comping on piano as Billy Joel is. So I'm still saying we're in G. So the vamp goes 6 to 4 dominant. You know, if you thought about it from an E minor perspective, that would be 1 to 6 in the key of E minor. You know, maybe, I think there's a 9 in there, but it's also in the melody, so, you know, it could just be C7. That would be like this, without the 9. But I think he might be doing a 9, so just a basic little vamp that gets us going into the song before the verse starts. And the verse does a pickup, and it's something like this. Here's the chord progression of the verse. We'll all... Then back to the vamp. So it does the vamp for 4 bars. It does the verse 1. You take the first ending and you go right back to the vamp, and then you go to verse 2. Nothing crazy about that song form. Really, the only interesting thing about this song form is that cinematic intro and cinematic outro, which is like the bread, and then the meat of the song is the sandwich, ABA, but it's kind of an abstract ABA. There's a lot of forms that are literal ABA, and this one's not quite that, because this B would have multiple sections and repeats and a couple odd time bars and things like that. So let's examine the chords of this verse. We have E minor 7, which is 6 of G major. A minor's 2, back to 6. Now 2, 4. Steely Dan influence. A B7 sharp 9 sharp 5, that is the Steely Dan chord. He copied them. No, jazz people are the ones that made that chord up. Steely Dan just studied jazz. And then Billy must have studied a little bit of them, because he is not on the same level that they are with the advanced chord progressions. His are more simple, and that's not a bad thing. He's a more blue-collar type of less sophisticated in general than Steely Dan. Let me point out one more thing. This A minor 7 and this C6, those are the same exact notes. C6, you could literally call it A minor 7 over C, and it's the same notes. But I just kind of wanted to show that the progression is moving up. And I think Billy is also improvising, like I was saying before. Instead of him just going, I think he's doing stuff like... I don't know. I don't think he's always doing the same thing back there on the piano, but I want to show you the simple version. So we have 6, 2, 6, 2, 4, 5, 3 dominant. But remember, B7 is really the 5 of the E minor key. Yeah, remember, whenever we see the B7, it's the 5 of the minor key, right? We're in E minor for most of this song. I've told you that. Just for Roman numeral reasons, I want us to understand it from major, but we also are understanding it from minor. So whenever we see that B7 of any kind, it's 5 of E minor. So the verse, from an E minor perspective, it would be 1, 4, 1, 4, 6, 7, 5. 1, 4, 1, 4, 7, 5 minor. Isn't that interesting? 5 minor on that first ending, a B minor 7. So let's play the first verse. It comes out of the vamp.
Well, we all have a face that we hide away forever, and we take it out and show ourselves when everyone is gone. Some are satin, some are steel, some are silk and some are leather. They're the faces of the stranger, but we'd love to try them.
Repeat. Okay, so you see that bar of 6/4? This is pretty proggy for Billy Joel. I can't think of many other songs where he does a odd time signature bar like that. So that bar of 6, start over. You could call it a bar of 4 and a bar of 2, but it's how you decide to break up 6. I just called it a bar of 6. Right there, that's the first ending. We take it back to the vamp. No real difference on the vamp. Remember, it's not the piano that's playing that. That's probably what the piano's doing, something like that. Then we go to verse 2.
Well, we all fall in love, but we disregard the danger, and we tell so many secrets. There are some we never tell, but you were so surprised that you'd never seen the stranger. Did you ever see second ending in the melon yourself?
Then we go to the chorus.
Don't be afraid to try again.
So good. So, pretty simple form there. Vamp, first verse. Take that bar of 6/4, which is the first ending, go back to the vamp. Verse 2, take the second ending, which also is a bar of 6/4, and then one more bar of 4 that brings us into the chorus. So that is a pretty interesting verse. It kind of masquerades itself as being, you know, this meathead kind of minor thing, but it's really not. Real quickly, that B7 sharp 9 sharp 5 chord is what I called one of the Steely Dan chords, and a sharp 9 chord is that Hendrix Purple Haze chord. But if you take a sharp 9 and also add a sharp 5, you get this really cool, that's one way to voice it, B7 sharp 9 sharp 5. The other voicing would be, and I use both in this song. One more interesting thing is on that first ending and the second ending, the last chord really feels like it's going to be a B7 going back to E minor, but instead it's B minor instead of in the key of G, like I said, we're in. B minor is the natural third. B7 is the dominant chord that leads to E minor, right? So interesting little thing there that it goes. And I almost thought I was hearing that B7 sharp 9 sharp 5 again, but I think you need to save that. Don't abuse it. I think it's just B minor 7 is what I'm hearing there. I do have other songs analyzing Billy Joel songs. I think I did Allentown, and I have performances of me singing Allentown, as well as the Ballad of Brenda and Eddie, which is from inside of the scenes from Italian Restaurant, which is probably my favorite song of his. Okay, so we are heading into the chorus, and I just want to tell you, this may be one of my favorite choruses of all time. It is such a cool melody, such a cool chord progression. The melody and chord progression, not directly, has a bit of a Steely Dan vibe in a very good way. It's very catchy, and this is... wait till I show you this. So let me take verse 2, which goes to the second ending and then heads to the chorus.
Well, we'll all fall in love, but we disregard the danger, and we share so many secrets. There are some we never tell. Why were you so surprised that you never saw the stranger? Did you ever see your lover see the stranger in yourself?
So where's that bar 6? Now the chorus.
Don't be afraid to try again.
So let me just play the chords of the chorus real quick. So good. Wild. Heading into the chorus on the second ending.
Did you ever see love or see the stranger in yourself? Don't be afraid to try again. Everyone goes south every now and then. Ooh, you've done it, why can't someone else? You should know by now. You've been there yourself. Once I used to believe I was such a great romancer.
Okay. Chorus is wild. So what is this? G major 7. We were in G, right? We haven't changed keys yet, right? We've basically been in G from an E minor perspective the entire song without any changes. Are we still in G? Because it starts on G. That would make sense. We are not. We have modulated to the key of D, which is in the key of G is its 5th. So if we were in G, we're modulating without it being obvious, because we don't start on the 1 of D. We start on G, which is the same key we were already in. So shouldn't our ears be like, oh, we're still in G? Let me just tell you that it doesn't come off as a key change in any way. It just sounds good. So I think that's, it's cool to have those key changes that are announced and you hear it coming. You're like, oh my God, listen to that key change or blah, blah, blah. Even better than that, a lot of times, is where you don't notice a key change. And that's the case here. So what it does is it goes to the key of D and it goes to that classic major to minor, and it doesn't sound like it either. And what I mean by that is if we're in, let's say we're in D, the classic major to minor from 4 is to go to G. Beatles did it a lot. 4 major to 4 minor. It's kind of like Nowhere Man.
He's nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land.
Here comes the 4 to 4 minor.
Making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
It's very sappy. It's a really cool sound and very emotional, but it is extremely overused and abused in Western pop music. So finding ways to disguise it is you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. I still put it in all my songs, but I change a bass note or I add an extension or I do something that makes it kind of seem different. And in this case, it's so different that I don't even notice it. First of all, the first chord is G major 7.
Don't be afraid to try again. Everyone goes south.
First chord is G major 7, which our ear hears as 1. We were already in G. But it goes to, instead of just going to G minor, it goes to G minor with a major 7, which for those of you chord geeks know that that's like the espionage James Bond spy chord. And it's even more so if you can add a 9 into it, which they don't here, but listen. So it's a very tense chord that is not used much in pop music except when you just climb down in minor, like G minor, right there. So in this case, we're not doing that standard climb down. We do Don't Be Afraid. And the melody is a dead giveaway that we're in it. For those of you who are questioning, oh, are we really in a new key? We were in G, and I don't agree with you, Tim. The melody goes, G would be, right? But the melody goes, Don't be hits C sharp. That if it's C sharp, so that means that's 4. So that G is 4. And D is 1. We're in the key of D. So what it does is it goes to 4. Don't be. Then it turns it to minor, but with the major 7. Afraid to try. Then 1. But it's not a standard 1. Listen to that chord. It's a D major 7 with a major 3rd in the bass instead of the D in the bass. So remember how much of a loop our ear got thrown for? Are we even in a new key? Doesn't sound like it. So all it just did was like 4 minor. That typical chord progression. It is all over music. The Beatles use it all over the place. It's one of the most common things you could do is go 4 major. And listen to how much this does not sound like that because of the extensions and the bass notes. That is brilliant, not to mention this genius melody on top of it. Even after it goes to that D major 7 over F sharp, you can see it goes to D7, which is in the key of D is 1 dominant, which leads to 4 again, which is exactly what it does. And why does this not sound like this standard? It's such a typical progression. 4 minor, 1 dominant, leading back to 4. This is just magically different, and it's because of the way that he phrases this. Don't be afraid to try again. 1 dominant. Everyone goes 4 south. Every now and then. Now a 2-5 in 4 of that key. So a 2-5 of 4 means that I said we're in D, right? 4 of D is G. And obviously G is kind of the center of this chorus because it keeps starting on G. So a trick in any key is you can take a chord of the key, such as 4, and you can do its 2-5. So in the case of G, its 2-5 is A minor, D7, or D9. So it does a quick 2-5 of 4 leading back to 4. From the top of the chorus, don't be afraid to try again. Everyone goes some every now and then. 2-5 of 4. Ooh. Now check this out. You've done it. Why can't someone else? Remember every other time it was minor, major 7? This time, and this is one of the most brilliant moves in the song, and it's very subtle, but take note, this is brilliant. Instead of going to the minor major 7, it goes to a straight up minor 7, which is always an option from 4 also. So if we're in D, an option is going G, G minor 7, back to D. And that's what he's doing this time. And then he does a different type of turnaround. So from the second half of the chorus, you've done it, minor 7. Why can't someone else? Now bass note alert. You should know by now. You've been there yourself. Let me play the chords of the chorus. So once again, let's discuss that chorus really quickly. We suddenly are in the key of D. We have no really way to tell that with our ear, other than the melody not doing C. So in D, we do 4, 4 minor, 1, 1 dominant, 4, 4 minor, 1, 2, 5 of 4. 4, now a real minor. D over C, Brian Wilson chord. So from the second line there in the chorus, G major, then to that G minor 7 for the first time, 1. Now 1 dominant, but with a different bass note, which leads us down to what seems like a B minor, but I'm telling you is a G major 7. Same notes except that G over B. B flat augmented, A6. So second line again, we have 4, 4 minor, 1, 1 dominant, 4, flat 6, 5, then that B7, change keys back to that E minor or that G major. That's most of the song right there. I think we've covered every chord that there is in the song, but that is a wild progression that I can't fully explain, and great chord progressions are always going to have dorks like me who are trying to like analyze every little thing, and there's going to be something I can't explain there. I can explain everything up until that augmented chord, I think. Let me try the chorus there. Don't be afraid to try again. Everyone goes south every now and then. Ooh, you've done it. Why can't someone else? You should know by now. You've been there yourself. Steely Dan chord. Production's really cool on that chorus too. There's like this triangle. It's very funky. The melody's catchy. The chords are mysterious and good. The second half of the chorus, we have 4, 4 minor, 1, 1 dominant. Now 4, flat 6 augmented. I can't explain that any other way. 5, A6, change keys. B7 is always going to be the 5 of E minor because the center of the song is E minor. So anytime we see any B7, it's usually heading back to E minor like we would expect it to. So at this point, I think I could talk to you about song form because there's literally nothing new after that. It's just the way that it kind of comes together. So let's talk song form. We had that intro, which is the piano taking the melody of the cinematic. So we had intro A, and then the whistling comes in on intro B. Then we had that vamp. Twice. Then verse 1.
Well, we all have a face that we hide away forever, and we take them out and show ourselves when everyone is gone. Summer satin.
So that's the verse. Then it takes the first ending and does 1 bar of 6/4 and back to the vamp. So that bar of 6/4 is,
they're the faces of the stranger, and we love to try them on.
Second vamp. Sorry, I stink at this.
Well, we're all fall in love.
So that's the second verse, and there's nothing really different. The second ending is just going to do a bar of 6/4 and then resolve to 1 extra bar of 4 on E minor before it goes up a minor third, changes keys without showing us to D major, and goes,
don't be afraid to try again. Everyone goes south.
So that's the chorus, and the chorus ends up right back into a verse. So let's talk the form through from there. We go from the chorus there to verse 3. Then we go to another vamp after verse 3. Then we go to verse 4 and straight into the second chorus. And this is such a brilliant chorus, but he was very wise to spare it. He just did it twice in the song, and it leaves you kind of wanting more, where some choruses, let's face it, they get annoying. I found myself wanting more of this chorus, and I think that was a pretty brilliant form. There's more verses, as you can see, than choruses. So it goes from verse 4 into chorus 2, and then after chorus 2 back to another verse, and then to the vamp, but it repeats the vamp and fades out and crossfades with the same band that's playing that cinematic intro. So it obviously was not done live. This is a production decision that the funk band is going to crossfade into the cinematic band. And I think it sounds pretty cool. I mean, it could be cheesy sometimes if you do that, but this is definitely recorded in probably at least 3 sections, but that's awesome. That's the way it was done. And in those days it was splicing tape and all that stuff. So after that crossfade, it does something very interesting. It goes to the same thing as the intro, but it reverses the two, where it does the whistle first and then the piano second instead of the piano first and the whistle second. I called these intro B and intro A. I could have called it outro B and outro A, but I wanted to show that it was exactly the intro parts in reverse. And then that itself fades out. So same set of chords. We already went over them before of that. Fantastic song, though. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and come join me on Patreon, and we will continue the learning. Thanks a lot for watching this video and taking an interest in my channel. Please help me reach a larger audience by hitting subscribe below and ringing the notification bell. Check out my video playlist page to find the categories that most interest you. Leave me a super thanks here on YouTube, and even better, come join my Patreon. Please consider buying music for my original projects I.S.S. and High Castle Teleorchestra. Also, don't forget to sign up for my email list on the front page of timsmolens.com. You can find information about all of those things in the description below. Thanks again.